Welcome to Money Made Easy. If you have ever felt like your bank account has a leak that you just cannot find, or if you feel like you are working harder than ever but have nothing to show for it, you are in the right place. This channel is all about stripping away the complicated talk and looking at how money actually works in our real, everyday lives. Today, we are diving into a topic that affects almost every single one of us, usually without us even realizing it: the psychology of why we spend. Most of us think that managing money is just about math. We think it is about adding up what we earn and subtracting what we spend. But if it were really that simple, nobody would be in debt and everyone would have a huge savings account. The truth is that money is much more about your brain than it is about a calculator. Specifically, it is about how our brains react to the world around us and the chemicals that make us feel good in the short term, even when we are doing something that hurts us in the long term. Have you ever walked into a store just to browse and walked out with 3 bags of stuff you did not even know existed 10 minutes earlier? Or have you ever sat on your couch late at night scrolling through a shopping app and felt a sudden, intense need to buy a specific gadget or a new pair of shoes? That feeling is not a coincidence. It is a biological reaction. It is what we call the dopamine trap. Dopamine is a chemical in your brain that is often called the feel-good hormone. But that is a bit of a misunderstanding. It is actually the hormone of anticipation. When you see something you want, your brain releases dopamine. It makes you feel excited. It makes you feel like your life will be better the moment you own that item. But here is the trick: the dopamine spike usually happens before you buy the item. It happens while you are looking at it, thinking about it, and imagining yourself using it. Once you actually hit that buy button or hand over your cash, the dopamine starts to fade. This is why you often feel a sense of regret or boredom just a few days after a big purchase. The high is over, and now you are just left with a lighter wallet and an object you might not even need. Retailers, advertisers, and social media companies know exactly how this works. They spend billions of dollars every year trying to trigger that dopamine response in your brain. They use bright colors, limited time offers, and clever wording to make you feel like you are missing out on something amazing. They want to bypass your logical brain and go straight for your impulsive side. They want you to spend your money before you have a chance to ask yourself if you actually want the item or if you are just chasing the chemical high of the purchase. Think about the way a supermarket is laid out. Have you ever noticed that the milk and bread are always at the very back of the store? That is not an accident. They want you to walk past hundreds of other items: the colorful snacks, the new magazines, the seasonal decorations, before you reach the thing you actually need. Every one of those items is a little hook designed to catch your attention and trigger a small dopamine hit. By the time you reach the milk, your cart might already be half full of things you never intended to buy. But there is another layer to this trap, and it is a bit more social. Have you ever bought something because you wanted to show someone else that you are doing well? Maybe it was a specific brand of clothing, a car that was slightly outside your budget, or the latest phone, even though your current one works perfectly fine. We often spend money we do not have on things we do not really need, just to impress people we do not even like. It sounds silly when you say it out loud, but almost everyone does it to some degree. This is called signaling. We use our purchases to signal our status to the world. We want people to think we are successful, smart, or cool. The problem is that signaling is incredibly expensive. If you are always buying the newest thing to keep up with an image, you are essentially giving away your future freedom to buy a temporary feeling of importance. You are prioritizing the opinions of strangers over your own financial security. It is a race with no finish line, because there will always be someone with a newer car, a bigger house, or a fancier watch. Imagine you are standing in a circle with 10 of your neighbors. Everyone is holding a shiny new object. You feel the pressure to hold one too, so you go out and buy a shiny object of your own. But next week, one neighbor gets a bigger object. Now you feel small again. This cycle repeats forever. The only way to win this game is to stop playing. You have to realize that most people are so worried about what others think of them that they are not even looking at you. You are sacrificing your actual wealth to impress people who are just as insecure about their own money as you are. To break out of these traps, we have to learn the most fundamental rule of finance. It is a rule so simple that most people ignore it, but it is the key to everything. You must learn to distinguish between a need and a want. A need is something you absolutely must have to survive and function. This includes things like a roof over your head, basic groceries, utilities like water and electricity, and reliable transportation to get you to your job so you can earn more money. These are non-negotiables. A want, on the other hand, is anything that makes life more comfortable or fun, but is not essential. This is where it gets tricky because our brains are experts at lying to us. Your brain will try to convince you that a streaming service is a need because you need to relax. It will tell you that a new pair of designer jeans is a need because you need to look professional. It will tell you that eating out 4 times a week is a need because you are too tired to cook. But if you want to be honest about your money, you have to call these things what they are. They are wants. Let's talk about food for a second. We all need to eat. That is a fact. But there is a massive difference between the cost of a bag of rice and beans and the cost of a meal at a mid-range restaurant. When you go to the grocery store and buy basic ingredients, you are fulfilling a need. When you decide to order delivery because you don't feel like washing a pan, you are paying for a want, the want for convenience. If you do this every night, you are not spending money on food, you are spending money on a lifestyle choice. Over a month, that difference can be hundreds of dollars. There's nothing wrong with having wants. Life would be pretty boring if we only ever spent money on plain rice and a roof. The problem arises when we treat our wants as if they are needs. When you do that, you lose the ability to prioritize. You start spending your grocery money on entertainment or your rent money on clothes. This leads to a cycle of stress where you never feel like you have enough, even if you are earning a decent wage. The issue usually is not how much you make. It is how much you have allowed your wants to creep into your needs. Think about the last time you got a raise or a bit of extra money. What happened? For most people, their spending immediately goes up to match their new income. This is called lifestyle inflation. You move into a slightly nicer apartment, you start buying the name brand cereal instead of the store brand, and you upgrade your phone plan. Suddenly, that extra $500 a month has completely disappeared, and you feel just as broke as you did before the raise. You have just traded your extra income for more expensive wants that you now think of as needs. Lifestyle inflation is like a gas that expands to fill whatever container it is in. If you earn $2,000 a month, you find a way to spend it. If you earn $5,000, you find a way to spend that too. The only way to stop this is to consciously choose not to upgrade your life every time your income goes up. This is incredibly hard because our society tells us that moving up the ladder means buying bigger and better things. But the real goal should be moving up the ladder while keeping your expenses on the bottom rung. The smartest way to handle your money is to keep your needs as low as possible for as long as possible. If you can learn to be happy with the basics, you unlock a level of freedom that most people will never know. When your needs are small, you have a massive gap between what you earn and what you must spend. That gap is where wealth is built. That gap is where you find the money to save for emergencies, pay off your debts, and eventually start investing so your money can work for you. Imagine that gap as a safety net. If you spend every dollar you earn, you are walking on a tightrope with no net below you. If you lose your job or your car breaks down, you fall. But if you have that gap, that extra money each month, the net gets stronger and higher. Eventually, the net becomes so high that you are no longer walking a tightrope at all. You're walking on solid ground. This is what people mean when they talk about financial independence. It isn't about having $1 million. It's about having enough that you don't have to worry about tomorrow. So, how do we actually tell the difference in the heat of the moment? How do we stop the dopamine from making the decision for us? We need a system. One of the best systems is the 48-hour rule. It is very simple. Whenever you want to buy something that is not a basic need, like a new gadget, a piece of clothing, or a home decoration, you have to wait 48 hours before you are allowed to hit the buy button. During those 48 hours, something amazing happens. The dopamine high begins to drop. Your logical brain, the part of you that understands your long-term goals, starts to wake up. You might realize that you already have something similar at home. You might realize that the price is actually a bit high for what it is. Or you might just realize that the excitement you felt in the store has totally vanished. If you still want the item after 2 full days and you can afford it without using a credit card, then you can go back and get it. Most of the time, you won't even bother going back. Another trick is to calculate the price of an item in hours of your life. Let us say you earn $15 an hour after taxes. You see a new pair of shoes that costs $150. Instead of thinking of it as $150, think of it as 10 hours of work. Ask yourself, is this pair of shoes worth 10 hours of sitting at your desk, dealing with my boss, or standing on my feet? Sometimes the answer is yes, and that is fine. But many times, when you realize you have to trade a full day and a half of your life for a single object, the object suddenly looks a lot less appealing. We also need to talk about the danger of convenience. In the modern world, spending money has become too easy. You can buy things with a single click. You can pay with your phone without even looking at your bank balance. You can use buy now, pay later services that break a large price into small, tempting chunks. All of these things are designed to remove the pain of paying. When we used to pay for everything with physical cash, we could feel the money leaving our hands. It hurt a little bit to watch the bills go away. That pain was a natural defense mechanism that kept our spending in check. Now that the pain is gone, we spend more. We sign up for subscriptions that we forget about. We buy small things every day that add up to hundreds of dollars a month. To fight this, you have to bring the friction back. Delete your saved credit card information from your favorite websites. Make it so you have to physically get up, find your wallet, and type in the numbers every time you want to buy something. That extra minute of effort is often enough to break the dopamine cycle and give you a chance to think. Let's look at a real-life example of how this plays out. Imagine two people, Sarah and John. They both earn the same amount of money. Sarah spends a lot of time on social media. She sees her friends going to fancy brunches and buying the latest home decor. She feels a constant pressure to keep up. She treats her wants as needs because she doesn't want to feel left out. At the end of every month, her bank account is at zero, and she is constantly stressed about her bills. She is caught in the dopamine trap, chasing the next high to hide her anxiety. Now look at John. John earns the same as Sarah, but he has a clear boundary between his needs and his wants. He pays his rent, buys basic food, and keeps his old car running. He still enjoys things, but he uses the 48-hour rule for everything. He doesn't care if people think his clothes are a few years old or if his phone is an older model. Because he keeps his needs low, he has extra money every month. He puts that money into a savings account. When his car eventually breaks down, he isn't stressed because he has the cash to fix it. He isn't smarter than Sarah. He just stopped trying to impress people who aren't paying his bills. Sarah's situation is very common. She might look successful on the outside. She has the nice clothes and the fancy photos, but she is actually one missed paycheck away from a total disaster. John might look more ordinary, but he is actually the one who is truly wealthy. He has something that Sarah doesn't have: peace of mind. He knows that if he wants to take a week off work, or if an emergency happens, he is covered. That feeling of security is worth much more than any designer brand or luxury item. The difference between Sarah and John isn't their income, it is their perspective. Sarah is working for her stuff. John's money is working for him. Most people are like Sarah because that is what our culture encourages. We are told from a young age that success is measured by what we own, but true financial success is measured by how much freedom you have. Freedom means not having to worry about an unexpected medical bill. Freedom means being able to quit a job you hate because you have a cushion of savings. You cannot buy that kind of freedom at a mall. It is also important to be honest about debt. Debt is the ultimate trap for your future self. When you buy something on a credit card that you cannot afford to pay off immediately, you are not just buying an item. You are borrowing money from your future self, and you are paying a massive penalty for the privilege. If you buy a $1,000 laptop on a credit card and only pay the minimum, that laptop might end up costing you $2,000 by the time you are done. You are working hours of your life just to pay for interest on a purchase you made years ago. Imagine a younger version of yourself standing in front of you. Every time you use a credit card for a want, you are reaching into that person's pocket and stealing their future money. You are making their life harder so you can have a little bit of fun right now. When you look at it that way, impulsive spending seems much less like a treat and much more like a mistake. The goal is to be a friend to your future self, not an enemy. You want to leave that person with more options, not more debt. If you find yourself in that situation, do not panic. The first step is to stop the bleeding. Stop using the cards. Go back to the basics of needs versus wants. Every dollar you spend on a want while you have high interest debt is a dollar that is being thrown away. It might feel like you are depriving yourself, but you are actually rescuing yourself. You are fighting to get back to a place where your money belongs to you again, instead of belonging to a bank. One of the best things you can do right now is to look at your bank statement from the last 30 days. Do not judge yourself, just look. Highlight everything that was a true need: the rent, the basic food, the electricity. Then look at everything else. Look at the coffees, the random Amazon purchases, the subscriptions you don't use. Do not think of them as mistakes. Think of them as opportunities. Every one of those wants is money that could have been in your savings account, giving you peace of mind. Finance is often presented as something very complicated with charts and graphs and strange terms like diversification or asset allocation. And while those things have their place later on, they do not matter if you haven't mastered your own spending psychology. You cannot build a house on a foundation of sand. Your spending habits are your foundation. If you can learn to say no to the dopamine hits and no to the need to impress others, you have already won 80% of the battle. Many people think they need a complex budget or a fancy app to manage their money, but all you really need is honesty. You need to be able to look in the mirror and say, I don't need this, I just want it. You need to be able to look at your friends and say, I can't afford that right now, without feeling ashamed. This kind of honesty is the most powerful financial tool in existence. It is the only thing that can truly protect you from the constant pressure of a world that wants you to spend every cent you have. The goal is to reach a point where you feel a greater sense of satisfaction from seeing your savings grow than you do from buying a new item. That shift in mindset is where the magic happens. Instead of a dopamine hit from a purchase, you get a sense of deep, lasting calm from knowing that you are okay. You are in control. You are not a victim of your impulses or the marketing departments of giant corporations. You are the boss of your money. Remember, nobody is perfect at this. You will have days where you slip up, You will have days where you see something shiny and you buy it on impulse. When that happens, do not beat yourself up and give up entirely. Just recognize it for what it was, a dopamine trap, and get back to your system. The goal isn't perfection, it is progress. It is about making slightly better choices today than you did yesterday. If you save $10 this week that you would have spent on a want, that is a victory. Celebrate those small wins because they add up over time. So, here's your simple takeaway for today. Next time you are about to buy something, take a breath. Ask yourself, is this a need or a want? Am I buying this for me or am I buying it for them? If it is a want, can I wait 48 hours? If you start asking those 3 questions, you will be amazed at how much money starts staying in your pocket. You will start to see that you don't need a lot of stuff to have a high quality life. In fact, often the less stuff you have, the more life you get to enjoy. Managing your money in a simple, honest way is not about being a miser or never having fun. It is about making sure that your money goes toward the things that actually matter to you in the long run. It is about buying your freedom one choice at a time. Thank you for spending some of your time with us here on Money Made Easy. If you found this helpful, take a look at your spending this week and see where you can find a little more freedom for your future self. We will see you in the next one.